Jurassic Park, one of the best movies of all time, one of the best summer blockbusters, and to a lot of people, myself included, one of Spielberg's absolute best. But one of the most iconic sequences, or maybe the most iconic scene in that film, is the T-Rex escape paddock sequence in the hour mark of this film. And today I thought I would go an in-depth dive on what makes this scene so good. Why do people keep coming back, not to this film, but especially keep coming back to this exact sequence? What keeps making people absolutely adore and love the T-Rex paddock sequence in Jurassic Park? So without that further ado, let's talk about why. Before we talk about the actual sequence, I just want to talk about how Jurassic Park is structured and how it's a perfectly constructedly built film. Before we actually get to the actual T-Rex dinosaur and before the intensity, we're an hour in to this 2-hour film. It's a perfectly cut hour film. The first hour of the film is setting up the characters, setting up the park, setting up the scenarios, and then the last hour is an intense thrill horror ride. It's a perfectly paced film from start to finish. The first hour is character developing, building the park, having subtle and amazing sequences with dinosaurs, and then the last hour is the horrifying aspects of the park with the T-Rex and Velociraptor sequences all throughout, with still great, amazing characters and sequences still throughout this film, and that's what makes it so great and impactful. So the T-Rex paddock sequence is a sequence that would not work if nobody else besides Spielberg directed this, not just this film, but this sequence especially. His direction comes out so perfectly done in this film, but especially in the sequence. The lighting, the camera movement, the way he decides to show the dinosaur, and the way he decides to move around the characters with said T-Rex. It's perfectly done by a perfect standpoint of lighting, contrast, and how he decides to show said T-Rex. It's a perfect example of how to perfectly put together a sequence like this. And what makes this sequence so great is not just there's an amazing dinosaur or the animatronic mixed with CGI blends perfectly and seamlessly throughout this film, but throughout this sequence especially. It's because the characters we've learned so well to enjoy and so well from the first hour of this film to like, we don't want any of them to die because we like these characters so much, because Spielberg and the creative team and the writers and all that stuff and the actors means you care about these characters in that first hour so incredibly much. So when this sequence actually does happen, you kind of feel that kind of sense of, wow, this is actually happening and this is a really awesome sequence. So I kind of want to talk about quickly the backstory of the dinosaurs themselves. Originally, Steven Spielberg was originally just going to do animatronics with this film. He was originally just going to make all the animals, all the dinosaurs, all animatronics, which most of them are in the film. But then I think there was kind of that issue that there was a lot of sequences might have looked not that great. One of them being the most famous sequence maybe in the entire film, that massive wide where the T-Rex, after he escapes, he roars. With an animatronic, that might look a bit, it might look great for 1993, but it probably would have aged horribly. So he mixed CGI, which was still pretty new at the time, the mix of actual fully rendered, computer-rendered beings, mixed that with CGI. Mixed the CGI with animatronics. So whenever the dinosaurs are close to the actors, or you're getting close-ups, or they're interacting with the actors physically, that is an animatronic. But whenever there's a wide, or it shows its entire body, or something that an animatronic could not do as well, it's CGI. And it's a perfect blend. It's so well realized because there's not any kind of commonsense of that's when they cut. It's perfectly seamlessly done from start to finish. And they had so many problems with the T-Rex. When they made the T-Rex, it worked flawlessly. Except when it was in water. Except when it got wet in the rain of the film. Once they turned on the sprinklers or whatever they used to make the rain of this sequence, it buffered, it shaked, it vibrated, it really would not work. which that's a problem. So they had to redo the entire creature, pad it with towels to make this sequence come to life, and eventually it became one of the greatest sequences, and took months to do, and it became the highlight of this film. When this film is re-released in cinemas, people go in droves to see this film in cinemas, most likely because of this awesome sequence of the film. So let's start. We talked about the backstory. We talked about what he was originally going to do. Let's talk about the actual sequence itself. It's perfect cinema from start to finish. It's a sequence from beginning to end, is a perfect way of how to do something on film, on set, and on a clear budget. Let's talk about the setup of this sequence. The setup of this is immaculate. The characters having the conversations, the dialogue, the funny, witty humor, the power going out, and of course the iconic sequence of the water vibrating, and it's amazing. The way the kids react to this, the way the camera pulls back, the way John Williams' score builds and builds and builds up to this sequence, and then the way it builds up until eventually you ask, where's the goat? And then once the leg goes on the screen, you are instantly out for a minimal thorough ride of one of the best sequences in movie history.
Where's the goat?
Because you're kind of setting up, you're like, something's going on, but once that light goes on the window, that music hits down, and you eventually see the T-Rex, the build-up of that, the camera panning up to see the T-Rex eating the rest of the goat. It's excellently filmed, and what I love so much about the sequence is how the characters work. Dr. Grant tells Ian Malcolm to not move. His vision's based on movement, showing that Dr. Grant is an expert on dinosaurs. He knows what he's talking about. Literally, right after he says that, kids are moving. They're trying to get a flashlight to know that Dr. Grant is extremely skilled and expert of what he does and what with his craft. But the kids don't know much about these type of things, so they make these mistakes. It's a perfect way to show Dr. Grant is super skilled with the situation, and the kids don't know what they're doing, and they don't know how they're doing it. And once he escapes, and we get that big wide shot of his roar, it's absolutely iconic, and it still gives me goosebumps to this very day. Just how great and how amazing that sequence is. It kind of builds and builds and builds tension so much. Let's talk about kind of the way they kind of deal with this sequence in a modern sense. The direction here in this sequence is physically maybe the best directed sequence. There's nothing that I'd say that could be done better. There's nothing that could have been tweaked. Everything about the Jurassic Park T-Rex combatic sequence, escape sequence, is done to a complete T. It's perfectly edited. The music is stunning. The direction is flawless, and the kind of brutal nature of this film, the death of the lawyer, is extremely gruesome, extremely well done, and it shows that this animal, it's not a force to be reckoned with. And you kind of have these dinosaurs kind of have this overposing. There's always a shot of that when the humans are looking at this creature, the shot is kind of always low dangled, or kind of in a low state, showing that these dinosaurs have a high power over these people. And kind of I can say what makes this sequence so great is the beautiful nature of how the sequence builds and perfectly nature of it. The first hour of this film, we barely didn't get any single look at only two dinosaurs. One that was fully CGI, and then the other that was fully animatronic. So we didn't really see how perfectly this perfect blend between T-Rex, CGI, T-Rex, animatronic could physically be. And I'm thinking because this sequence is just the cinematography of this sequence is absolutely mind-boggling. It's such a perfectly, beautifully shot sequence. The lighting is especially grand. The kind of dark fog, the mist, and the rain. The rain especially adds to the sequence. I could not imagine this sequence if they did not do the rain, because the rain kind of gives this otherworldly kind of being that this is the dinosaur's domain. This is not where man should be. It's all perfectly executed from start to finish because of this incredible sequence, because of this amazing kind of impact that this film has. It's a sequence from start to finish, shows that these characters are really well done, and it's just an entertaining movie sequence from start to finish. It's extremely entertaining, from all the sequences, the dinosaur crashing in. It's all excellently helmed. It's a perfect movie sequence. What makes this sequence so great? The title of this video is it's timeless. The dinosaur is never going to age. It has comedy. That's never going to age. It has intense sequences, and the direction is never going to age. The lighting, the cinematography, Dr. Grant having that knowledge and the kids not having this verticality, that's never going to age. The endless setting, this is easily the scene I look forward to the most. Not because there's finally a dinosaur or in the film or something's actually happening. Because the first hour of this film, there's no dinosaurs. Really, they're just talking and having dialogue and kind of persevering the story before they even go to the park. It's really riveting and interesting stuff because of the writing, because of the direction by Spielberg, because of the gravitas of this entire film. But this sequence is a beautiful way of how to do an intense sequence right, and the build-up 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 to this entire sequence an hour into this film. I think that's why it's so incredible, because they didn't overpay the load. They waited an hour, get your character set up, and then do the highlight of the film. And it's so incredible. It's absolutely amazing. So that was kind of my in-depth thoughts on the Jurassic Park T-Rex sequence in Jurassic Park. What do you think of this? I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you guys like this video, you can hit that like button and subscribe and hit that post notification bell so you guys never miss when I upload another video. You guys can check out my podcast I do every other Tuesday with a friend of mine. It's called the Movie View Podcast. And you guys can check out my Instagram at General_Daniel77. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time. General out.